Let's go.
Hey guys, I'm Nick and welcome to another tutorial. Today we will be exploring kind of like this foam or technical foam growth and expansion in the fractured object. This effect is inspired from Marcus Colonner still, where he did like incredible detail on texturing. I think he actually uses some sort of substance designer or something, because it's super tactile, you know. And my example, we will be more focused on animation, and one reason for that is that VDB UVs are still kind of tricky to me, so I'll show you how to add a bit of texture actually modifying the mesh. Alright, so here we are in Houdini, and yeah, what we have here is the thing that you could see already a few times in my tutorials. So basically 2 cameras, material network, and 3 lights, which you can see here. Pretty default kind of studio light setup, but this little here is very subtle, so it's more like a one directional light and the backlight here. So now to the actual setup. So here you can see that we basically have kind of like 3 parts for this tutorial. So we import our rock and we fracture it. Then we do this Vellum simulation, which actually, let me paint this one into a yellow because it kind of goes for the Vellum sim to the Vellum sim. And then we mesh it all out. Here are a few tricks that will help you understand how it works, and also will help you when you will be doing your own versions of this one, because you can think of many cool ways to do this thing. Because, and for example, one of that would be if you grab a statue. Actually, we'll do a render in a few days, I think. But if you grab a statue and it's all fractured, and then this foam appears from all the cracks, and yeah, could be cool. So yep, we start with our gigantic rock, which is from Turbo Squid, which was free to use and all that stuff. Then we drop a mesh size, target size 3, 3, 3, and scale to fit is checked. Also, don't mind that it's this has this weird rotation, because I have rotated it here in the geo. I actually have a bit of animation like this one, just 150 frames. So yeah, let's go here. Now we drop a mesh size, then one input goes to the scatter, and I scatter just 5 points, so I want 5 chunks for the Voronoi. I drop a Voronoi fracture. All the thing here is default, and we have these chunks here. Maybe let me turn off the lights just for now, so it's better to see and visualize everything. And then what we do, we drop a remesh node, and for this remesh, you can go a bit higher than 0.4, but I don't care that much about the poly count here, so I thought maybe 0.4, 0.04, 0.03, something like that is good, because it will be a few close-up shots, as you could see in the like promo or render. So yep. Then this is an amazing node. So soften normals, lapse soften normals. Basically it does what it's in the name. It softens the normals. So you can see all the edges here are now much better. If we would go with a even denser remesh, 0.002, you can see that all these edges became even better. So yeah, definitely use lapse soften normals. You could skip that though, but yeah, it just makes all these edges a bit smoother. And then you can see that we have pretty ugly UV distortion here, so we drop lapse auto UV. If you don't have lapse, SideFX Lapse comes with a SideFX launcher, and SideFX launcher could be downloaded from the SideFX official website. So yep, you don't need to do basically anything to install it. Just click the button. And then we drop our exploded view. So here's the trick. Doing Vellum that influences RBD fractured object, and then binding it back to the Vellum so it goes like a collider, and then going with some glue constraints and then passing them to the RBD. In this particular case, I think let's fake it, because it would be an insane amount of material and theory and of course production time, and then the tutorial will be insanely long, because it's pretty difficult setup when you bind one to another and that another goes back to the first. So yeah, for this one, those grains are not actually pushing the rock apart, right? So what I did is I have animated the uniform scale of the exploded view. It goes fast and then it slows down to 120, oh no, 150. So yep, that's what we have here. But our particles are actually simulated, so there will be some physics-based stuff inside. So what we want to do here, our Voronoi fracture produces two groups, inside and outside. So what we want to do is go to the exploded view, and first of all, yeah, let's drop a null and just like save this state, right? So it's out exploded. And then we want to add some mesh here in the intersections for our particles to spawn. So we add a blast node and check our group inside and select delete non-selected. What it gives us, and it gives us only these intersections or like the interfaces from the cuts from the Voronoi. And then we want to go and add just really simple for each loop. So it's for each named primitive, and drop these two. And inside I add a primitive SOP and scale set to 0.3. Let me visualize what we got. So basically what this primitive SOP does with the scale, it scales each primitive kind of uniformly. So basically if I uncheck it, you can see that it shrinks down almost. So it's not like a real scale, it just shrinks down, and I don't want our particles to start like they already fill all the inner part of our rock. I want them to be kind of in that center, in that middle part of the rock, and then they expand. So then I drop lap thicken, which could be substituted with a poly extrude. This is just faster than either. Yeah, so depth is set to 0.04, and you should adapt this depth based on your exploded view value here. So example, if we go with like 0.26, you see that we obviously want this to be extruded more like this. Let me go back. We want them to the point that they cover each other, but they don't go into the mesh for too deep, if you can say it like that. So here you can see that they are covering each other. For the material, yeah, you can just drop material and leave it here for later. And now let's go and set up our Vellum fluid simulation. So I didn't want to drag this to here, to the Vellum. I want it to be organized at least to this certain point. So I drop an object merge, and here in the object merge, you can see that we select our out base, which is this one. This is our base. And the good thing about volumes, because particles are created from volumes and from polygons, we actually don't care about any sort of intersections. We don't care about like reversed normals and all that stuff. So we're perfectly fine just like select the subject merge, or you can of course just plug directly like this. But yeah, I just think that it's good to arrange your setup in a way that there's no much going across all the setup. So here with this Vellum fluid, we drop a Vellum configure fluid, create points from volume. Here are a few things. So this particle size, you see that in the exploded view, we're using 0.06, right? So if here I input 0.03, you will see that there are much less particles here. And if I input 0.06, you can see that there are barely no particles. So basically the particle size should be a lot smaller than your distance between exploded segments. Here I'm using type fluid packing density to 1.3 and viscosity. For now, and you can experiment with that, viscosity is set to 2000, but I can do the following. For the Vellum fluid, for the DOPNet, we will need obviously our two nulls. One is geo, one is constraints. So what we can do is go to the constraints and drop an attribute noise. The attribute names is this visc. It's set to type float, element size 0.2. You can play with this fractal here, element size 0.2. If I colorize that, you will see this is my attribute whisk from 0 to 1. Now, what I also can do is drop this attribute remap and remap whisk to actual viscosity and remap the 0 to be 600 and 1 to be 1800. The denser your particles, the more viscosity they will need to, like, not fly away or flow away. But basically these two work for me, and they produce a slight variation in the end shape of the meshed particles, because some of them flowed faster and were less viscous, so they formed a different shape than those that were slower and more viscous. So what we can do now is create a very simple simulation. So let's drop a dot network and dive inside. Here you can see it's all very basic here. What we will need here is our Vellum solver, our Vellum object, which is all default, our Vellum source, and here you can see that activation is set to $SF less than 120. So we are emitting emission type set to each frame, but each frame till 120. In the subpass, we specify our geo null, and constraint subpass, we specify our constraint null. Then what I wanted to do here is this attach. So here, actually the thing that I accidentally got deleted when organizing this. So we will need to add another null and call it out attach. So this one is where the particles will stick together. So let me explain to you a few things here in the DOP network. So you can see that we have our Vellum attach. Yep. So we drop this Vellum constraints. Yeah. Create constraints each frame. Constraint type attached to geometry, group type points, and target group type also points, and target pass to our attach. Here in the closest point, be sure that you check constraint to closest point, use closest location on primitive, and you check the max distance. And this max distance is very tricky because right now if I set it to be, I don't know, 0.5, and you know that distance between segments is 0.6, it's basically it means that all of these particles in between gets attached to one or another side. So what I want here is just first layer of the particles. So I want only, for example, only these particles that are kind of touching the surface, I want only them to be attached. And then, because we have really high viscosity, all the other particles are kind of glued together. So they will also stick to the particles that are here, and these particles like here, they are sticking to the particles in the first kind of row that are actually attached to the geometry. So after our attach, I added just a little bit of pop wind. I actually don't see that it does anything, but yeah, just a touch of random movement. Why not? For the Vellum solver, substep set to 2, and that's all that I modified here. And for the static object, so we use our out exploded, which is basically all our rock, which is here. Yeah, this one is our out exploded. So let's go back to the DOP network. We check use deforming geometry, use object transform, create an active object, and display geometry if you want to visualize it. For the collisions here, I'm specifically using surface collisions. For me, it was much faster to simulate surface collisions than to go and create a VDB and use volume collisions. Here, I think I have nothing changed, so yep, it's all default here. So now let me simulate, I don't know, 60 frames, and let's see what we've got. Turns out that important thing here is actually to prevent this rotation here. So this was my kind of like final mesh that I have rotated, and you can see that if I enable the DOP network here, preview for the DOP network, it rotates a lot. So might be that the thing that you want to do is after our out, you drop a transform node. So here I added another geo and turned off all the rotations, and now the simulation is going just fine. So let's proceed with this one, and just remember that you don't want to apply any transformations for your actual geo when making simulations. And here I the particle size to 0.03, so it just goes just a bit faster. So now we can simulate, I don't know, let's say, yeah, these 30 frames. So here you can see we have a pretty weird result, but that's basically because of these particles, and I haven't modified our Vellum attach, so quite a few particles don't understand what they should do here. So that's why I think it's pretty crucial to either use bigger distance and more particles with a bigger particle size, or yes, this setup is pretty resource hungry and we should go with a low particle size. Well, when you are done setting up your top simulation, what you want to do is drop a top import, and you can just drag and drop this sim here, and in object mask you delete this ugly thing here, and you specify your Vellum object 1 in my case, and then you file cache it. For me on the Mac, it took around like 20 to 30 minutes to file cache 150 frames. So yep, here's our particles, and here is how they grow till the frame 150. Actually, they grow till 120, but I simulated 150 just in case, because you can see a subtle movement here after the emission stops. So now a few things about meshing these. For this, I think we can go with a VDB from particle fluid, which for me gives a bit better results than VDB from particles or VDB from anything. But I wanna add this a bit more texture, because right now, look, if I just select VDB from particle fluid and wait a couple minutes, actually, yeah, of course, not minutes, just a few seconds. But here is our mesh. And if we go and let's say we bypass all of these and just convert it to polygons, you still can see that, I mean, we won't see this part or this part, it will be just this. And here with this VDB from particle fluid, be sure to uncheck resample unit and check limit refinement iterations, because from some meshing tutorials on YouTube, I found that this actually adds a bit stability and prevents the mesh to jitter too much. With this particle separation, it's really up to you to play with these settings. For me, 0.015 for particle separation, 0.45 for voxel scale, influence scale set to 2, droplet scale set to 0.5. These work pretty good. But here are a few things that I think can up this one a bit. So what we want to do is, after our file cache, we drop our group expression. And here in the expression, if you click this little drop down, there's a 30% chance. So if you click 30% chance, this will look like this, so 0.3. I want a 5% chance, so 0.05. And if I visualize this one and set it to, I don't know, let's say 50% just to visualize it better. Here you can see that a lot of particles are selected, basically every second particle. And if I go down to the 5%, here you can see that just 5% of the particles are selected. And then I drop an attribute wrangle, and I created here is group 1. So in the attribute wrangle group, I specify group 1, run over points, and p scale. I wanna grab a random number between 0.017 and 0.5, so we drop a fit function, so it takes the value in the range 0 and 1 and shifts it to the corresponding value in a new range. Our value from 0 to 1 is based on the random number, which is between 0 and 1 from the rand function. For the seed, we're using point number, which is unique for every point, and we shift this value, which is initially, here you can see, creates a random number between 0 and 1 from a seed. So we shift it to be not 0 and 1, between 0 and 1, but between 0.017 and 0.5. And if we visualize that, you can see that instantly some points are much bigger, some points are much smaller. And if we go and convert it all to VDB using that same VDB from particle field, you can see that we have a bit more bumps, a bit more details here. And if we maybe add a VDB reshape, and here I use close, and here I use dilate, just to make it a bit bigger, you can see that we still don't lose much of the bumps of this bumpy texture here. This is the one thing that you can do. And the second thing that you can do is actually make tiny like holes where the bubbles were. So yeah, something like that. So here we add another group expression. In this case, I'm using just 3% of the points. So if we zoom out, we can actually see them. And here I want to delete everything, but not the group 2. So we drop a delete node, operation delete non-selected, and group 2. So here is just 3% of our points. And now in this attribute triangle, same exact thing, but for the group 2 and between 0.02 and 0.04. So these are a bit bigger than our initial points. And now if I go and here add the VDB from particle input, you can see I don't want these to be meshed, right? So again, you could play with this particle separation here, but the thing that I want to do here is add a VDB combine, or actually it's VDB SDF subtract. So if I enable this one, and it's basically default, you plug our base shape to the left input and you plug this particle, unconnected particles to the right input. And here you can instantly see that we got some protrusions or something. So if we add just a bit of, or maybe actually we don't need the smooth, let's check it out. Yeah, so now you see these particles here. If we actually add smooth, it will smooth out these particles. So I think I like this effect a bit better. So here's how you can add a bit of texture to your VDB. And the thing I also want to do is actually the new noise for VDBs wasn't working that great for me. It was taking too much time. So I just converted this to VDB, to polygon, sorry. And here I add a mountain node. And for this mountain node, I actually, because our shape is growing, I also keyframe the amplitude from something like 0. Yeah, from 0 to 0.03 at frame 150. Because obviously we can displace this geometry a bit more than this very thin one that we use in the beginning. And we should be aware that we don't want to go crazy here, because otherwise it will actually protrude through our rocks. So we want to still maintain the look that is believable. And it might sound like a hack, but I'm a strong believer that you are not getting paid for extra hard work, you are getting paid for the result. So basically it does not matter, at least for me, as I have my freelancers working for me. I don't care how they deliver result, and my clients that I work for, without like bypassing work to another freelancers, they also absolutely don't care how I deliver those PNGs or these MP4 animations. So they absolutely don't care about that. So that being said, you see that we have some protruding artifacts here that will be noticeable. So what we want to do is now we can drop our the basic VDB from polygons. Voxel size here is set to 0.005 and VDB reshape SDF set to close, convert VDB, and now all of our geometry is looking pretty good. Now we grab, just because we kind of finished working with our particles, so out particles, or actually it should be out VDB foam, I assume. Yeah, should be better. Here in the materials, yeah, one goes here, where is our rock, and in this case it's called stone material in our MatNet material network, and here it called paste, because I still don't know what it is. It's paste, foam, or I don't know. It's definitely some sort of very viscous liquid. And I merged these two together, and here's our result. And here's our out null that's just called out. So yep, here's the setup. Let's just quickly go through the materials. So for the rock, I'm using just roughness, bump map, sort of a rock material. Yeah, it's all pretty default here. I mean, it's just plugging the textures. For the paste material, actual paste material, it's a bit more interesting here. So what I did is, of course, I added a bit of color, but you can see that diffuse color weight is set to 0.681, and that's because we are actually using subsurface. I won't go in details here, but actually what I did here is add a bit of this yellow transmittance. What if the base was still liquid, not solidified? So yeah, just a bit of subsurface. I'm not a Redshift expert, and I actually cannot and don't want to teach you Redshift because I still need to learn a lot. But yep, just a like kind of creative idea to make it actually a bit more subsurface scattered, if you will. So for the cameras, 2 cameras, both focal lengths set to 80 and a bit of depth of field. Let me actually fire side effects, render, and yeah, let's grab this final just because I have already cached it out. And when you cache, then you can do any sort of manipulations. But as I told you, it's better to just go inside of the geo and then you apply the additional transform node in the very end. And that's how you can manipulate, modify all of the things there. And now let's open up Redshift, RS vertical. And here, if we select our camera 1, it's straight here. And for the camera 2, it was super tricky. I rotated it like crazy angles. And yeah, I got this nice close-up shot here. If we go select camera 1, and fire up render. And of course, don't forget that we should enable our lights. Here you can see that it's pretty blurred. So what we want to do is go and select again our focus, and here it is. I've rendered this one as PNGs, applied a bit more saturation to this foam in After Effects, and that's basically it. Again, for some creative ideas, yeah, I think it's just fracturing some vases or statues, or, you know, this My Mini Factory Scan the World things. So yeah, might be something cool. Alright guys, I think that's it for this tutorial. I really hope it was useful for you, and if you have any questions about this tutorial or any other questions, feel free to ask them in Discord. I will be streaming live I basically stream every day, but since we might be in the different time zones, I understand that you might not be able to join the live stream, but yeah, still you can write down all your questions. I will be glad to help. So yeah, thanks again for supporting me, watching my tutorials. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you guys very, very soon. Bye!